What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on Second City Gridiron. Of course, I'm joined as always by Ross Reed for all the Bears news. First of all, at Second City Gridiron, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get the audio-only versions. Remember to listen on Spotify, iTunes, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your media. Do the same. Hit the like button. Tell a friend or two. Look up the great articles. Our cohorts right up at Windy City Gridiron. And I'm at the Real Evan Mac on social media. As I said, Ross is here. Before Colston Loveland did it, he had the best version of Let Me Love You that I knew. He wishes nothing but the best to Klay Thompson now that he and Megan Thee Stallion are dating. And he called that new Chance album, quote, transcended. He is at Ross Reed on social media. My man, it's Ross Reed, folks.
Yes, finally, we got a hip-hop act in Chicago that we don't have to shame or we got somebody that we can actually enjoy. Shout out to Chance. And shout out to Colston Loveland as well for that amazing rendition of one of the best R&B songs of the early 2000s.
You know, if Hard Knocks was this year and last year, it would have been going viral with the cowboy from Idaho doing his thing. That was impressive. He also got Mario's stamp of approval, so good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Love that for Colston Loveland, and the Bears just riding high right now. We're going to talk about it in this episode of Mac and Reed, and remember, you can pipe in on the chat here as Viso Joe joins us again. We're good, Viso Joe. We'll be talking Bears. We'll recap that Bills game a little bit, that throttling. Ben Johnson wouldn't even crack a smile during, but we saw a lot of great action from the twos and the threes as the Bears will whittle down their roster to the 53 after this last preseason game upcoming against the Chiefs. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about left tackles, still question marks there. Ben Johnson not thrilled about it, and I'm sure Caleb Williams also not thrilled about it. We'll talk running back. We'll talk about defensive takeaways as well. Maybe a little bit of around the NFL. And we'll talk about that Chance album to end the show. Surprises along the way. I'll give you a bonus one too, Ross, and usually my intro with you. I know that you didn't need the FDA to tell you not to buy shrimp from Walmart to get shrimp from Walmart. Not only is Ross, little known fact about Ross Reed, this is like the match game or like know your co-host. Ross is allergic to shellfish.
That's right.
So he wouldn't be messing with the shrimp from Walmart anyways.
Wouldn't touch it from Walmart, from the Outmart.
Even if it was right out the ocean.
from any mart. I'm bummed. We're going to Baltimore, obviously, at the end of October for Bears game. And everybody says you have to have a crab cake. And I was like, I can't. That's not what I can do. But I enjoy all the other fish.
Crab?
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy the fish and stuff like that. But watch out for that shrimp from Walmart, even before the FDA. That.
It'll get you. All those TikTok chefs are definitely doing the shrimp from Walmart on the seafood boils and planes or whatever. So it just adds to the grossness.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Fire. Good times. So to begin, let's talk about it. Not too much else of note from that Bills game. I mean, we all know the score, 38-0, and it's preseason. There's not a ton to take away from it besides, I think, obviously the few starters that played, whereas the Bills, and this leads to a bigger question too, Ross, I feel like preseason, where they're already getting rid of one of the games essentially, and it's a 3-game preseason. Now the Bills not playing Josh Allen, not playing many starters, and this is in the midst of Hard Knocks. Maybe they just don't want that sort of access or something like that. And obviously you just want to remain healthy. That's the most important thing that we've talked about time and time again, getting out of camp healthy into week one, which they play Sunday Night Football against the Ravens, which will be a big AFC matchup. And the Bears, again, it's a second-year quarterback. Maybe if Caleb Williams goes into that MVP conversation as Josh Allen, he'd be in similar talk. But Caleb Williams out there engineering a terrific drive to start the game was everything you wanted to see, with mostly the ones culminating in that, big touchdown pass to Zacchaeus. You sprinkled in some Colston Loveland in there. It was all passing on that first drive. It was Ben Johnson saying, hey, get the ball out quick, go with a sense of urgency. This was after that, the kickoff was down at the 8, so he had to do a 92-yard drive, had to engineer a 92-yard drive with most of the ones there. And, that was super impressive to see from Caleb Williams and not totally unexpected. We knew what to expect from this wide receiver core, but to see some cohesion, some coexistence from Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland getting targets as well. It's nice that just Caleb Williams has this really embarrassment of riches of weapons, and we'll see that. And we'll talk about the twos and threes, but it was pretty limited. I'd also say too, the second series just kind of came back down to earth. And you're playing again, not all the starters from the Bills, but you go and pretty much don't complete a pass on that second series. Still a great QBR, obviously, in that limited couple series tape. But anything you like that I didn't mention or didn't like from Caleb Williams and sort of those starters in that Bills game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the two things that stuck out to me were his footwork, number one. He was really clean. He was standing in the pocket. He took almost every snap from center, which was a very different, situation than what he did last year under Shane Waldron and Thomas Brown. So you could tell they really worked on his footwork and working on the center, and it helped. Bill Walsh used to say, playing quarterback is like kind of playing like you're in the opera a little bit, and your wide receivers are also in the opera with you, and your footwork has to almost line up with their footwork. And I think last year Caleb Williams really struggled with that. He really kind of danced around and patted the ball and held the ball in the pocket. Another thing that stood out for me too, he got rid of the football on Sunday at about 2.5 seconds, which you want your quarterback to be under 2.7 5 seconds in the NFL. Last year Caleb finished the season over 3 seconds, so he was holding on to the football. And as that happens, you start, see the sacks are coming, the protection starts to break down, your footwork starts to get sloppy, and then so does your mechanics. So you can tell they really worked on, we know Caleb Williams, we saw in college from USC, he's amazing at the freestyle plays, and he's amazing when things break down, and he can kind of make, chicken salad out of chicken, what. But, can he work on the mechanics, stay strong in the pocket, keep his footwork clean, and also get rid of the football in a timely manner? And he did just that on Sunday. I think that was the most impressive thing to me. Ball was coming out fast, like you said, went to both tight ends, Kmet and Loveland. The touchdown pass to Zacchaeus. He had a little bit of an out route to DJ Moore. He missed one pass the second series on third down to Roman Dunze, but I think Roman Dunze also should have caught that football. It hit him right in the hands there. I think there was just a little bit of an outer throw, and Rome needs to kind of flatten out his route a little bit. But to me, it was just the basics. It was the mechanics that you want to see. It was him being able to get the football out clean. His feet look great, and he didn't take any hits. There's no sacks. He also, he was pushing the ball down the field over the middle of the field as well, which I think is really important for what the Bears want to do this season. They got guys like Zacchaeus. They got guys like Cole Kmet and Loveland, and even, you're in Dunze's and eventually Burden when he gets in the mix to work the middle of the football field. So it's really nice to see Caleb Williams do that.
He was, like you mentioned, we knew what Caleb Williams could do being drafted by the Bears in college, extending plays, making plays with his feet, avoiding sacks, which we saw him do some incredible things last season, but also hold on to the ball too long. And you said getting the ball out in under 3 seconds, so huge to just setting the tone right away. And that's what Caleb Williams said. He said, I think it sets, quote, a tone for us as a team. I think it sets a tone for how we expect ourselves to play, go out there, perform. Yeah, it was extremely important. And Ben Johnson certainly thinks of it that way, and look at the way he ran the Lions offense for the past couple seasons and made them into a huge contender. You're seeing that really start clicking now. And I know can't get ahead of ourselves before week 1 against Minnesota, so to speak, but that's what you wanted, just to get those important reps in, and as you look at the twos and the threes, the next man up is going to be big. And certainly your new rookies like Luther Burden with a few catches, almost 50 yards. Great. Tyson Bagent, looking like the incumbent backup who was really impressive. Austin Booker going to be a pretty, hopefully, good surprise on that defense as far as building on the little bit of success he had last year. And then, yeah, I'm thinking like the running back battle has been interesting to watch when really your starters aren't playing at all. And, it's DeAndre Swift's job to lose, but then we didn't really have Britton Brown in the conversation until this Bills game where he goes off and plays extended time with the ones and twos. And just a feel good story too is Ian Wheeler, who we remember, who was one of the big takeaways from Hard Knocks last year before he got injured, getting a couple touchdowns. May not be sniffing this roster, but certainly helps his chances in the NFL overall. Just such a talented, smart young man.
Mhm.
And the defense, we weren't on for that tie with the Dolphins game, but still the defense is like, hey, what about us, right? And they're putting a ton of pressure on these other teams. Again, Austin Booker had great game that time around, and just blitzing quarterbacks, and just you're seeing this new look defense be bringing it just as much. And I'm curious to see what Dennis Allen does going into week 3 with these mostly 2s and 3s and guys on the fringe playing against the Chiefs. What else have you liked in a couple preseason games, and what do you think could be improved on, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the running back position, I think there's a lot of question marks there. Obviously, DeAndre Swift is going to be your starter. He's going to get the bulk of the carries. He's going to get a lot of touches, even in the receiving game out the backfield. But there's some question marks outside of that. Roschon Johnson is banged up right now. Kyle Monangai is also banged up right now. Travis Homer is a veteran, but he's mostly a special teams kind of guy. You don't really want him out there on the field from an offensive purpose standpoint. So I actually do think Ian Wheeler has a shot to make this roster, because I think they might need to use him sooner than later. He might be your third guy on the field. I mean, that's assuming either Monangai or Roschon can get back healthy, and then you mix in a guy like Ian Wheeler. I mean, there's no secret the Bears have to be banged up at the running back position, because you didn't see either guy on Sunday in Johnson or Monangai. And then they keep working out running backs. Today, they worked out 3 guys. They worked out Royce Freeman, Kylan James, and Dylan Johnson. So something's going on there. So there's some guy, maybe 1 or 2 guys are a little bit more banged up than Ben Johnson would like. So that is something to keep an eye on. And I'll be interested to see who gets the bulk of the carries this Sunday. If Ian Wheeler is going to see some meaningful snaps, he probably is going to be your starting running back. I mean, this Friday coming up, to see if he can get some burn with the ones, and he can get some handoffs, most importantly, from Caleb Williams, right? Those guys probably haven't handled the football, exchanged handoffs a lot from each other. So that's going to be interesting to see. I like what we've seen from Tyson Bagent. I think he's just a solid, number 2 quarterback in the league. There's all this talk that comes that Bagent could be starting somewhere and this and that. He's a nice number 2 guy, but he runs the offense and he does what he's supposed to do. And let's hope we don't ever see him in the 17 regular games of season games coming up. And then, you hit it on the head. That defensive line, there's going to be a lot of questions on who's going to make this roster, who's not going to make this roster, right? Unfortunately, Austin Booker got banged up a little bit on Sunday. Let's hope that he's okay, because I think he can have a big season as a rotational pass rushing guy. But is a guy like Dominique Robinson going to make this roster, who's also banged up with injuries right now? We haven't seen a lot from Zach Pickens, who was a third-round pick from 2023. And then the silver lining, we haven't seen him on the field from a preseason standpoint, but their pick this year, their second-round pick, Shamar Turner, is finally practicing again. And so, I don't expect him to be much of a contributor early on in the season. But if you ease him in, and after the first quarter of the season, he could be another rotation guy, with Grady, Jared and Dexter Sr. and Andrew Billings, then we've got some bodies to really rotate. So that's going to be something to also keep an eye on. We haven't even also talked about Zal Frazier's name, the 5th-round pick from this year as well, from the cornerback position. He's been battling a personal issue. We don't know what it is. We respect his privacy. But I think at this point, this late in the game, the Bears are going to probably I hope they don't cut him, right? Because you don't want to burn a 5th-round pick that fast. Maybe they can do a phantom IR situation or try and sneak him back on the practice squad.
Yeah, that'd be still a blow, right? When you think about depth and how important it is. And for the young man just to miss all of his rookie preseason would be disappointing for him. And we don't know what he's going through, but just more disappointing from a team standpoint as well. Mm-hmm. I hope that the Austin Booker, it's something that's just a little banged up and nothing long-term. We're sort of, and these are guys, Andrew Billings got some time and showed some fire on the defensive line, and Gervon Dexter, and guys who are going to be rotational, like Austin Booker, who we're looking for someone to be that other bookend pass rusher to sweat
Mm-hmm.
I hope that Booker can fill that need, and I'm sure that he'll get some reps if he's healthy in this final preseason game against the Chiefs. But really, this all leads back to the things we liked from the Bears. We talked about offensively. We talked about the wide receiver depth. Talk about the tight ends. Talk about running back. At least Brown and Wheeler have some depth back there in case your top couple guys are suffer injury. But offensive line, you don't want it in flux like it is right now, or with some sort of hesitations at left tackle, at least with
Yeah.
Caleb Williams. The interior has been overhauled, and that's going to be your bread and butter, and they're going to pave lanes for Swift or whoever's back there and do their thing. But that's a very important position when, Braxton Jones is the defunct starter, and Ben Johnson has not been convinced that he necessarily he's I forget the exact quote. He's basically been frustrated that it's gotten to this point where Jones is the starter, but certainly not looking like solidly there. And Ozzy showing that he can move around the line. He got some reps, I think, at right tackle last week, and then he's also coming in at left. Like, that versatility is great, right? If Ozzy can do that, but with Braxton Jones, how concerned are you, Ross? We've talked about this. We've monitored it for weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I was coming out of that Dolphins game. I was very concerned because I think he had a really bad game. He just had no power in his legs. He had no stability. His legs also looked very atrophied. They looked very slender, very skinny. Obviously, when he was coming off a lower leg injury in the offseason, he had surgery. It's kept him out. I think in hindsight, he probably rushed back a little bit, but that's what happens when you are battling for a starting gig, and also you are going into your final year of your contract, and you're looking to get paid. Even average left tackles these days are getting $25 million a year plus, right? So Braxton has a lot of pressure on him from himself, from his family, from his agent, and even from the team to say, hey, we need you to get out there sooner or later. And a lot of times that can be a detriment. I thought he bounced back better this past Sunday. And so now he's got, probably about 3 weeks or so for him to get right ahead of week 1 against a very tough Vikings defense. I still think right now he is the best answer that they have to be the starting left tackle, unfortunately. I think Ozzy Trapillo has showed in camp and preseason, he's a right tackle right now that's going to take a lot longer to get comfortable on the left side if that's his eventual home. I mean, imagine, this is a crazy analogy, but imagine if you've been wiping your butt with your right hand your whole life, and then somebody says, hey, try it with the left hand for a few weeks. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable. It's not going to work out. Yeah, it's not going to work out as well. It takes some time to get used to. So you got to give Ozzy some grace and probably give him the entire year unless he absolutely has to get thrown out there in an unfortunate emergency situation. I think that's why you also seen the rise of the undrafted, player Theo, Benedict, right? He's been out there and he's taken some reps. He's clearly going to make this team now. He started off as the guy last year from Hard Knocks in the thong situation, or in the Speedo, whatever he was in. But now he's a viable guy out there because Kieran, the guy that they drafted last year, 3rd round, he's been hit or miss as well. And I think if Theo had longer arms, he would probably be winning this job right now. But instead, it's going to go to Braxton Jones. And I just want Braxton to get healthy. Again, I think he looked better on Thursday. Still not quite comfortable. Doesn't have that anchor strength that you're looking for. But I'm hoping within the next couple weeks, he gets stronger. They're going to probably ease off a little bit heading into week 1 before they ramp right back up right before week 1 with practice and things like that. Allow him to rest. He's gone through a tough training camp. And I'm hoping that they can buy him some time and get very strategic on how to help him out on that left side until maybe he gets his legs underneath him, no pun intended, maybe by week 3 and 4, hopefully, but at the beginning, you just have to cross your fingers and pray for the best. Circling all the way back to the beginning of the conversation at the top of the show, all the more reason why you want Caleb Williams getting that football out as fast as possible and get used to that. Your footwork has got to be clean. These receivers have got to win off the breaks. And you've got to get that football out in your 2.7 seconds or less because of that issue on the left side right now.
Yeah, it is an issue, and Chicago Clubhouse Network agrees with you. Braxton legs are toothpicks, unfortunately.
And he had skinny legs before, but
Sure.
now listen. As somebody who's torn his Achilles before, and has worked and trained individuals with lower leg injuries and things like that, atrophy is real, and it takes a while for these guys to get that strength and up back to speed. In reality, it's probably going to take him close to a year post surgery for him to feel like himself again. And so right now we're in the first 25 to 30% of that situation, and you can see it. You can see it on the field. It doesn't take much for anybody to see it.
Yeah, my big takeaway is that he's on a short leash, and you can't have that glaring need and weakness in the left side. You can't, teams are going to overload the left side. If you see, tight end over there or running back for extra help, it's just not going to work, because the rest of the 4 offensive linemen, I feel, are pretty strong about it at this point. Outside of the 3 acquisitions and Darnell Wright, I do feel good about it. But Braxton Jones, as you said, looking pretty shoddy, but it's also recovery, and all the more reason to just get important reps in practice. But with Ozzie, I think it's a very distinct possibility that we see him at some point in this regular season if Braxton Jones does struggle, even 1 week, 2 weeks, that we see Ozzie at left tackle, if not someone else shuffled around at this point. But like you said, I'd like for him to be which he is right now on the depth chart. If you look at that, the de facto left tackle ready, on Braxton's behind to be like, hey, I'm going to take your spot if Caleb's getting a hit in this instance. I don't know. Outside of that, there's not a ton, going into this Chiefs game that I'm really, looking forward to, or something that I feel like is a crucial camp battle, because I think it's just, again, as I talked about at the start of the show, the preseason is just not the same as it was, even for all these contenders. For certainly contenders, they're not even, if you're not playing Lamar Jackson in week 2, you're not playing Pat Mahomes. They're certainly not playing Mahomes or a bunch of these starters against the Chiefs, this upcoming game in preseason week 3. I don't know if there's any other positional battles that you've got an eye on, Ross, but I think it's pretty set as we're, looking towards wrapping up camp here and just seeing who the depth guys are as we look at the 2s and 3s running out the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got some interesting decisions to make. At the wide receiver position, there's a lot of guys in the back half of that depth chart that are fighting for some spots. Obviously, we didn't talk about Luther Burden, who was absolutely outstanding on Sunday. Obviously his roster spot is secure, but my God, the catches he was making, the blocking that he was doing, most importantly, Ben Johnson told you, no block, no rock when he got hired. And he certainly showed that off. But because of that, the Bears come into this for the first time in a long time. You feel great about DJ and Rome and Zacchaeus and Burden, right? Those are 4 rock solid guys. That does not leave a lot left over for Devin Duvernay.
Happy with Tyler Scott, but you just don't want to keep that many wide receivers.
Yeah, and Tyler Scott made a boneheaded play on special teams, on a kickoff on Sunday. It's like you can't, when you're trying to make a roster, you can't do things like that. So I think Tyler Scott probably on the outside looking in. Devin Duvernay is probably going to be your primary return guy. He might be there. And then you got guys like Marcus Alexander, had a good camp in preseason. We haven't seen much of Miles Boykin, so maybe he gets gone too. And you got like even JP Richardson fighting for spots. So we'll see who makes the practice squad, who are going to be your backup offensive linemen. Those things are important. Luke Newman is a name we didn't talk about. Their 6th-round pick. I think he's played better. What does that do for guys like Bill Murray and Kramer and Ricky Stromberg and things like that? So those are the things that we're seeing. I think from Friday's standpoint, I know Ben Johnson came out today and said that the starters were going to play. Great. I don't think that they play more than, maybe a series or 2. I think what he wants to do is get his football team used to preparing for a game and preparing for a game on the road in a hostile environment, right? So we're going to treat this like a true dress rehearsal. We want to have the meetings ahead of time. We want to, come up with the game plan. how you prepare for the game. How do you warm up? It's a night game, right? Also, their first game of the season will be a Monday night game at home against the Vikings. And then I think you go out there and you see Caleb Williams, and I put the over under of him at three passing attempts. And I probably take the under on that. Maybe he gets 3 handoffs and you get him out of there. That's it, especially after what we saw yesterday. Joe Burrow is running for his life, and Jaden Daniels gets a rushing touchdown, but the safety could have murdered him and put him in a hospital in D.C., and he decided to kind of whiff on a hit. So that's what I expect this Friday, is kind of treat it like a dress rehearsal, but get these starters out of there, man. You hit it on the head. Preseason at this point has been so diminished. We like it because football is back, but it's by and large, it's fake football. And Ben Johnson sat down with Kay Adams today, and he was like, what you guys have seen so far in preseason games, that's not even in the Bears offense. I haven't shown you anything yet. So again, all the more reason, if Caleb Williams goes out there Friday and he throws, 6 for 6 with 2 touchdowns, it's largely going to be off an offense that they're not even going to use. And Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for Chiefs, is probably going to play a very vanilla style too, because those guys have Super Bowl aspirations over there. They don't want to see any of their big guys get hurt in the final preseason game as well.
No question. And Visor Joe asking about Kyle Monungai's injury, which, if you look for reports, it's undisclosed. He just didn't dress for last week.
Yeah, still quiet. I think everybody's still quiet right now. We'll probably get some more information as they head back into Hallis Hall, maybe as soon as tomorrow, and see who is practicing ahead of the Chiefs game. And then, we'll definitely get a lot more information. And, cut day is a week from today. So, we'll this same time next week when we do a show, we'll have a final 53-man roster, and we'll know who's going to be set for week 1, big showdown against the division rival Vikings in Soldier Field on a Monday night.
Yeah, and also hoping that, Jalen Johnson was doing warm-ups. We knew that he wouldn't play this preseason either way, but, it's still kind of questionable going into week 1. Mm-hmm. It would be a huge loss at corner to start out without him. Kyler Gordon getting healthy as well. So we'll see. But if coaching has told us anything this preseason, it's looking good, and it's looking night and day between Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen, and taking control of their units, which is great.
Yep, agreed. Completely agree.
For it. And NFL news throughout. Did you ever think that you'd be saying Daniel Jones is the starter for the Colts to start things off here?
There's Daniel Jones is starting. Joe Flacco is starting. Joe Flacco and I are almost the same age.
Joe Flacco. When do you think he's done?
I know he's starting, but listen, I as much as you want to root for a kid like Anthony Richardson, because by all accounts he's a nice kid, and when he's out there, it can be very exciting. But there's nothing exciting about a guy that has a sub 50% completion percentage, and he can't stay on the football field because he gets hurt. And you have this guy who, on paper, looks like Cam Newton, and you want to run him like Cam Newton and do those kind of things. But if he gets hurt and he can't stay on the football field, he's not good enough as a pocket passer to just turn him into that. So you have to let Daniel Jones go out there and give it a shot. And history has shown us that doesn't look good either. But you've got a GM and a head coach right now fighting for their careers, because both guys could be fired by the end of the season, especially now that Jim Irsay has passed away, and that has now been passed on to his daughters. They have no allegiance to these guys right now at this point. And so you have to go with the guy you feel more comfortable with, who can win games right away. And that's Daniel Jones, who, even though he was a nightmare at the end there with the Giants, and then he was stashed on the Vikings for a lot of the second half of last year, you just can't put Anthony Richardson out there. I do expect Anthony Richardson probably gets some playing time at some point, just because I just don't think Daniel Jones will last more than 7-8 games max before he flames out as well.
It's quite a mess from last year, and we knew, Anthony Richardson was saying, like you said, had all the potential to be a mobile mix, throwing quarterback a la Cam Newton, could stuff the stats, but character issues play into it, I think. And then, health issues, obviously, even more so. His agent said he reacted with disappointment in the move and said he's unsure of his future with the club. But you figure what other future is there right now? You got to play for your next job with the Colts, and if you're getting benched at this point for Daniel Jones, it's not great. And like we talked about ad nauseum, this preseason was all about getting guys healthy. I mean, Joe Burrow didn't even want any part of the Commanders in that defense in the Monday Night Football game there. It's starting to feel real. Certainly, as we're preparing for week one, in the Bears side of things against the Vikings, you're starting to think about who's really favorites. As we know, the Chiefs and Eagles facing off in the Super Bowl last year was a great one for the Eagles. Great one for the Eagles, and they're looking to sort of be their own NFC dynasty. But now we're figuring out, the future bets and all the sorts of fun things that will take place in this 2025 season. Getting pumped.
Getting pumped for sure. I mean, I think if you look at the very top of the league right now, your top heavy Super Bowl contenders, the defending champs, they still have the most loaded roster in the NFL right now.
Sure.
They open up a home game against Dallas on Thursday Night Football, a Dallas team that I don't know what's going on with Micah Parsons. So, and you kind of need them if you want to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you look at, in the AFC, the Chiefs are still really good. I actually think the Chiefs are a little bit better than they were last year. Obviously, that's pending whatever happens with Rashee Rice and that potential suspension situation. And then, of course, I think Buffalo is really good too. And coincidentally, another team that is also battling as a kind of that second contender spot with them are the Ravens. Those two teams play each other opening night, Sunday Night Football. So that's an amazing game too. The NFC is a little bit more up for grabs, right? People think Washington can be that team. I'm pretty skeptical. I think they brought on a lot of old guys, and I do need to see it again from Jaden Daniels in year 2. I wouldn't write off the 49ers just because their schedule is really easy, and they still have one of the best play callers in the NFL. And I'm still a big believer in Purdy. And then a dark horse for me in that conference is the Buccaneers. I think if they can get Tristan Wirth back, their left tackle, who's going to miss probably the first month of the season. Listen, Baker, whatever you want to say about Baker Mayfield, he might be a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. The guys threw for like 5,000 yards last year. And
played like last year.
Yeah, absolutely. They got an awesome running game, and Bucky Irvin. They got this receiver, Abuga that they drafted, who's going to be out there with Mike Evans, and they're going to allow Chris Godwin to ease his way back into it. Defense is not bad. And I think they can be a contender as well. But we're excited. Football's back. We get college football games this weekend too, as they start to ease their way back into things. And I know we get a big college football matchup Labor Day weekend, right? We get number 1 versus number 2, Texas versus Ohio State. So it's going to be that time of the year. Your fantasy football drafts are coming up. We got a fantasy draft this Sunday. It's you hate to see summer go away, but this truly is turning into the best time of the year as always.
It helps ease the pain of summer ending when you get a little bit of football, and then we get the late September, still kind of warm going into October. It's nice. Agreed on what you said about the NFC. I'd also say Detroit it's going to be interesting to see with the departure of Ben Johnson how they perform this season without their offensive guru. See if Jared Goff takes a step back, but we know how loaded that roster is. Atlanta seems like pretty solid on paper if they could make a run in that NFC South, which was kind of up in the air last season for a while. But Pampa Bam with you there and challenging the 49ers. The Seahawks seem to be kind of right on the cusp. But if you're looking at the AFC, it's Buffalo, Baltimore, or Kansas City or bust. I mean, it's very, top heavy with those guys, and those all 3 MVP candidates, and the quarterbacks of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes, just transcendent quarterbacks for sure.
That Denver team though is kind of like the sneaky, weird, sexy pick. A lot of people, they got maybe one of the better defenses in the NFL. Sean Payton, obviously an awesome play caller. I just can't get there with Bo Nix. I can't get there with him. I think what he did last year was probably his ceiling. And if that's your ceiling, which he had a fine season, I just don't know how you can go out and you can beat Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And so I can't get there with Denver. But they got a fun roster across the board though on offense and defense.
They do, yeah, and especially if they can, compete in the AFC West and get some wins. You figure that the Raiders are still rebuilding, so to speak, and then the Chargers are very up and down with Herbert. So you never know. They could be second banana to Kansas City, which is never too terrible.
Sure.
But let's talk about. Did you see Weapons, Ross?
I saw Weapons in the theater.
Yeah,
I saw it the day it came out. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Zach Kroger is turning into he's on that Jordan Peele, Ryan Coogler, like when this guy comes out in a movie, you better go see it right away kind of director. I compared it to two TV shows. I'm showing my age here, but one is The Twilight Zone and the other one is Tales from the Crypt. And I think if you enjoyed those two TV shows, and if you're old enough to see those two TV shows,
like OG Twilight Zone. I mean,
it had the same vibe to me. I appreciated I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but I appreciated the point of view standpoint that they did, and I thought the ending, the last 20 minutes, was just wacky batshit in a very fun, exciting way, and I loved it. It's as a horror aficionado, you get exhausted with the ghost in the third floor or the same old mundane concept that you see in these horror movies now. So it was fun to see another unique story from Kroger. He gave us Barbarian, which is absolutely just instant horror classic from a few years ago. So I loved it.
And someone who's a big movie aficionado said I have to see Barbarian before seeing Weapons.
So. Barbarian, listen, they would be a very fun double feature. You might lose a little bit of sleep that night, but fire up Barbarian and then go see Weapons. Absolutely.
And my wife and I were listening to the radio driving around, and the the jock was talking about the sort of plot of Weapons. She's like, turn that up, and she thought it was a news story. I was like, this isn't. No, they're talking about a movie. There's no third graders running around like this again. Don't want to spoil the plot for people.
No, if your kid runs out the house looking like he's about to take off on a runway at 2:17 a.m., you got a problem.
You got problems. Who's got no problems is Chance.
Oh, look at that segue.
Yeah, that segue. Mm-hmm. And really, man, we talked about it just kind of being a slower start to the summer music. It's just not a ton of like big projects coming out from certainly the pop standpoint. I don't, which we don't really care about anyways. We're in it for the hip hop and Clip started it off, and then we got that Alfredo 2 from Freddie Gibbs, and then Jid's new album came out, and all these guys announcing tours. I'm like,
Tyler had an album in there too.
All these tours, yeah, and of course Tyler's sort of more dancey album, but then Chance to throw his hat in the ring here, and we haven't heard from Chance in years. I feel like, to me, he had what was it, the Big Beautiful Day or whatever it was called, which was not good. It was like a double album.
It was terrible.
It was like a bad follow up to Coloring Book.
Yeah.
And then to go, now to this album where I feel like, to me, and I love that it's not. I don't know. I feel like some people don't like it when you're not advancing your sound, so to speak, but it sounded like a mix of, mixtape Chance where Coloring Book meets the old acid rap Chance. Exactly. Thank you. So Starline, the name of that album that came out on Friday, and I was like, oh man, this Chance album's out, and he's got the frequent collaborators like Jamila Woods and Vic Mensa on there. Joey Badass was great.
That Vic Mensa song, that verse that Vic does is incredible.
Yeah, and he's a interesting social media follow, and he was talking about how he does not mind being second banana to Chance or having a great feature is just as good as having that number one song in his eyes. But yeah, I think there was a lot of great songs. Like Tree felt like it could have been on Coloring Book with Lil Wayne and Smino, and like Burn Your Block is also up there with the Kate Renata produced track that he had. I was thoroughly into it. Our buddy Ed said it was like one of the best comeback albums he had ever seen. It was just really unexpected. I feel like he should have hyped it more, and it's up there in the conversation with those other three hip hop albums.
It definitely is. I'm happy that Chance rebounded and really worked on his craft, worked in the lab, put out a good album. I think people forget, when Coloring Book came out, I think Chance was like the anointed one, right? He was the one that was like, all right, here we go. Here's our next bona fide superstar. And then he does a lot of features on Life of Pablo, right, with Kanye West. He's on Waves. He's on the opening track, which is one of the best hip hop verses in the 21st century, in my opinion.
Ultralight Beam, yeah.
Ultralight Beam, absolutely. And then he's got the SNL performance where he does that verse on there, and everyone's like, "Here he is, this is the guy." And then that album you talked about, where he just talked about how he loved his wife for the whole time, was just one of the worst hip hop albums I've heard in a long time. And that's no slight to his now ex-wife, but it's just a bad album. So I was happy to see him rebound. And you hit on the head. He went back to old Chance. It was a lot of Coloring Book, acid rap style, but also you could tell he matured a little bit. Before he used to talk about a lot of drugs and stuff that he did, but now this man's a father and things like that. And so I appreciated the project. It was very, very soulful, which is what the best part of Chance is. The initial track after the intro, he's got Do or Die. So speaking of Chicago legends, and Do or Die is also having a moment right now too, because they went viral. One of their most popular songs ever never had a video, so they decided 30 years later to just record a video for it, and it looks awesome. And it's like in Chicago, and it's got Twister in it and stuff like that. So, good for Chicago hip hop. I think Chicago hip hop needed this right now. Even like Chief Keef just turned 30 years old the other day. How's Chief Keef only 30 years old? I feel like he's been out for like 20 something years. So, it's again, another good cap to some of the veterans in the game saying, all right, we're going to bring hip hop back to its prominent state that it needed to be at, which was away from the TikTok kind of nonsense, the minute and 47-second songs, and just was not happy where the product was at. And we've got some amazing albums, some amazing projects the last couple of weeks. And oh, by the way, you get a Ghostface album this Friday. So, you get a Ghostface Killer album this Friday. And it's like, yeah, sign me up for a Ghostface album that has Nas on it and everybody from the Wu-Tang and all this. Like, hell yeah. Like, let's go, right? It's grown people hip hop is back, and I'm for it.
It's really, you see the old and the new school just dominating too. Like Jid and Freddie Gibbs are at the top, I think, of the conversation for a lot of folks. And then
they're very old souls in hip hop too, their sounds.
Sure. And then I should say Jid with that Clips feature on one of his songs too, who is just great. Got to see him on tour, I think. Yep. But Chance, I mean, I'm wondering now where he pivots from here. I'm sure tour is forthcoming now, and as well it should be, and hopefully gets back to that real, creative peak where he was at, because that's all it takes is when you're at bottom, take some time away. He's still he's like 30 at this point. We talked about Chief Keef. He's super young. Got a lot of career ahead of him. Yep. Just look at the guys who are still putting out music like Nas and Clips and Ghostface, as you said, Ghostface on, whatever his like 6th studio album at this point is, and you'll be good, man. I like Burn Your Block. Did you have a favorite song on that album?
I did. You talk about the Jid album?
Jid's album.
I love like you said, I love the song that he had with Clips. I hate the fact that this is my old man speaking to me. I hate when these guys don't put the features on the album. Like they don't tell you who the features are, but then Spotify eventually did it. But the Vince Staples song was absolutely crazy. Another just super underrated artist for me. I love West Side Gun. I know he's not for everybody, coming from that Griselda clique, but he's on the first song with Jid. And then I'm always excited. One of the newer acts I do enjoy is Don Toliver. So I'm always excited to hear Don Toliver on the track as well. And he had a great track with Jid too. That's just another very fun album. I like Jid is a very like lyrical miracle, fast rapping guy. So I like that he kind of switched his flow a little bit from the album, and he kind of slowed it down a little bit and gave you, something that you can hear. And I think the most important takeaway for me from the Clips album was those guys enunciated every single word, and I can hear every single word, which was like, again, bring that back in hip hop.
Yeah.
You know, no diss to Offset and some of these other guys. But I like to actually hear what you're saying, and I like when it matches the beat and the cadence of the song as well. So bring some more of that back.
Well, and Clips would also say too, like, you know, we'll have features on here, but don't shy away from you being the center and having like the best tracks on the album. I think did that too with Glory and Work. Like Work was the single going into this album. I'd love to see him on tour. I mean, he's so talented. He had the pop-up show at Reggie's a couple weeks ago that looked like a blast. Obviously, you know, hard for us to get out there on a Tuesday and stake out a line for a couple hours to do, but
it is.
But my 20-some-year-old self said, yes, get me out there.
Yes. Reggie's about across the street from me.
Reggie's super close to you.
Some of the best chicken wings in the city of Chicago, underrated rooftop. And
pre-game spot for the Bears.
Yeah.
For now.
Speaking of hip hop, I once saw Royce the 5'9" there, which was just an absolute classic show as well.
Saw Black Alicious there. Great venue.
Yeah, it is.
Super. Enough reminiscing. Thanks everybody for watching and listening in. If you're on Spotify, iTunes, on YouTube, remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. We'll be back on next week. Remember to follow at Second City Gridiron for all the Bears news and all our great programming. At WC Gridiron on social media as well for some articles about the Bears. At Ross Reed, my boy Ross over here. I'm at The Real Evan Mack. Everybody be good to each other. Enjoy that final preseason game against the Chiefs. For now, we say deuces. So long, everybody.
Peace.